So this hasn't technically happened yet, but Blake is going to clear waivers on Sunday, and it seems like a pretty safe bet that he is going to the Nets, so let's talk about this. I mean, from the Nets standpoint, it's low risk. It's not going to cost them much money at all. They might have to waive somebody to make room. I don't know for a fact, so maybe they would lose somebody who they probably don't think could do much for their rotation anyway, so they're hoping that Blake can just prove that he's not washed. The 20 games he played for the Pistons this year did not look great and missed the majority of last season with an injury as well, so we hope that Blake has still got something left. Now, when you think about just his fit with this team, I mean, of course, Harden, KD, and Kyrie are going to create open looks for Blake. Whether he's playing the 4 next to DeAndre or he's playing the 5 and there's 4 perimeter guys around him, my guess is we're probably going to see more of the one big man thing with the Nets or no big man, like Jeff Green, KD, small ball 5 sort of things. I don't imagine there's going to be a lot of DJ and Blake. I'm not saying it's not going to happen at all, but my guess is this Nets team probably doesn't want to try that out too much, but we'll see. But anyway, I think, yeah, they can create open looks for him. I mean, if it's a Harden, Blake Griffin pick and roll, would teams switch that? I think it would depend on the type of player they would have guarding Blake. Like, would teams guard Blake with a slow center or more of a wing player? My guess is they would go for more of like a 6'7", 6'8" guy, so you can still switch action with Blake involved. And when you think about other pick and roll coverages, I mean, if teams are going to trap KD, Kyrie, or Harden when Blake sets a screen, even if Blake is nowhere close to what he once was, you have to guess he's still good enough to recognize what the next pass is, whether it's to an open shooter or a guy cutting, or he's got to be good enough to take 2 dribbles in and then make a play at the basket, right? Now, as far as Blake's potential to dive to the basket, if teams will actually give him that and they're not just going to switch action and stuff, we'll have to see. I mean, if you got Harden in the middle of the floor with momentum to the basket and Blake can still be a lob threat, then that does sound pretty tough to defend. The next question, which might be the biggest one, honestly, is can Blake make threes? Because if he can make threes and they're playing him at center, I know that teams are going to go at him in pick and rolls and stuff, and they'll probably have some success doing it. But if he can shoot from outside and they have 5 dudes who can shoot and Blake can still grab rebounds and hopefully provide some rim protection, then that could be kind of wild. Because at that point, I have no idea what you do to defend these guys. The only thing you really could do is just switch everything and dare them to beat you one-on-one. I guess the last thing to think about before we get to the defense with Blake is on offense. How are they going to use Blake's passing, if at all? I mean, there's a chance that he doesn't touch the ball much outside of being a finisher. But if they would use him in some sort of like Bam-esque actions where you got Kyrie and Blake handoff plays, that sort of thing, I think that could be cool. Again, I don't know how much they're really going to go to that just because, I mean, it's Harden, KD, and Kyrie. Like, do you really want somebody else running the offense at all? But it could be a nice little thing that gets thrown in there every now and then. But even then, for that to be really effective, Blake has to be threatening, whether it's off the dribble or as a shooter, so we'll see there. If we can get to the defense with Blake, I mean, look, I don't think he's going to transform the Nets defensively. They have been better lately. We will give him that. But, you know, if he's at center, teams are going to go at him. If he's at the 4, I think they're going to force him to guard on the perimeter, and we'll see how it goes. I mean, even when he was really good, Blake, I mean, unless I'm just not remembering right, I don't think he was ever considered for an all-defense team. I don't think he was ever even in the conversation for that sort of thing. So now you look at how he's been this season with Detroit, and you know, it could get bad if teams really focus on him and if he's got to defend in space and close out to shooters, which is why it might be better for him to just play center all the time. Yeah, he's still going to be susceptible to, you know, pick and rolls, pick and pop type of stuff, but at least he doesn't have to run out to the perimeter. Now, the other thing they could try is, depending on the opponent, they can put him on the non-shooter or the worst shooter on the opposing team, and I know there could be some success had with that. Anyway, if I could talk about the Nets just as a whole now, I'm just trying to think how they won't make the NBA Finals I mean, I get it between the size up front and, well, they helped that out a little bit with Blake here, but again, defensively, Blake not exactly the best. And the idea of that versus Embiid versus Giannis, I get it, but it's still KD, Harden, and Kyrie. I mean, there's some fear, KD's missed some games. Kyrie, he has not been hurt this season, but he's been hurt every year the past 4 years, so there's a chance that just happens again. But James Harden is an Iron Man, and he's the backup plan if one of those other two get hurt, right? If I think about them versus Philly, I mean, the Sixers have the best defensive duo in the league, so that'd be interesting. I mean, there's been talk about how Ben Simmons is maybe the only dude in the league who you could actually put on KD and he'd have a chance. I mean, it's kind of true. Who else has proven to be that good on the ball with that size and athleticism? It's kind of just Ben. Now, whether that means that Ben should be on KD or Harden or Kyrie, I guess we'd have to wait and see. I mean, just because he matches up physically closest to KD doesn't mean that that's actually the player you should have Ben put most of his defensive energy to. I mean, if you force James Harden to have a bunch of bad playoff games, that could win you a series against the Nets. So we would just have to see if Ben could really do it. As far as Embiid, this is basically just turned into a Nets Sixers 3 months early preview if it ends up happening. But I think the key for the Nets, if they were going to face Embiid, is just throw as many defenders at him and force him to be a passer. I don't think they'd have much of a shot of defending him in the post. I mean, I don't think DJ can do it. Blake might actually have the body to do it, which is kind of interesting, at least to stop Embiid from getting to his spot every time. And Harden is a good post defender, but that's a whole different thing, trying to guard Embiid. So, yeah, as far as the Nets versus the Bucks, I think the one chance the Bucks would have is if they just moved away from a lot of the things they do, which we've been saying for a while with Budenholzer. Which, to be fair, they've done a little bit. They've had a guy in the dunker spot on offense. They've switched more on defense. But, against the Nets, I feel like they would have to have Giannis attack Kyrie every single possession, and I just don't know if they're really wired to do that. On top of, I'm not sure if Brook Lopez can survive in that series with all the shooting the Nets have. But I doubt Budenholzer is just going to bench Lopez, so yeah. To get it back to Blake, we'll see. Again, it's low risk for the Nets. He could be something on offense, not expecting much on defense, probably a lot of center, and we'll see.